Hello, welcome back to All About Oman. My name is Rudolph Stewart. I'm an expat living in Oman, and I've started this channel to share my experiences with everyone about what it's like to live and travel in Oman. Today's topic is taxis. It seems pretty simple, straightforward, part of everyday life, and that's why I thought it would be something good to talk about, just so that everyone's aware what it's like if you're here visiting or just moving to navigate the city using taxis. I'll start with talking about taxis from the airport. So if you arrive at the airport and you want to take a taxi, you only have one choice. There is a government-run taxi company called Muwasalat, and they have taxis as you exit the arrivals hall, and you can take a taxi to your destination. There's a selection process to become a Muwasalat taxi driver. So therefore, those taxi drivers usually have better vehicles, they're in better condition, and you get a much more comfortable ride than some of the older taxis that we're going to talk about later. Muwasalat advertises that the driver should always use a meter, and if they don't, then the ride is free. I live near the airport and often take another taxi service to the airport, and honestly, my fares are usually double to come home from the airport compared to what it costs to go to the airport. The thing to note from Muwasalat is that when you get in the taxi, it already has a fare on it because you're picking up from the airport, which I don't think usually happens when you're driving around town. So I think that's one thing that leads to the higher fare. So, there's a meter, you can see how much it is, you're not getting ripped off, so you can ride with confidence knowing that you're paying what you should be paying. It's just that it's a bit more expensive than what you'll pay if you're taking taxis around town. Now, you can just hail taxis on the streets like you would in most countries, and they can take you from one location to the other. Often when you do that with a non-Muwasalat taxi, you negotiate the fare. To be honest, I can't remember if they have meters in them. I suspect that they do, actually. I'm pretty sure all taxis have meters. But it's not uncommon to just negotiate the fare with the driver when you get in. Now, my recommendation is to always use an app and not actually hail a taxi on the street, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. Another taxi option you have is actually group taxis or group buses. In Muscat, there is a long street called Sultan Qaboos Street, which runs pretty much throughout the whole city from the far north to the south. And along Sultan Qaboos Street, you have taxis that drive up and down, and you can just jump in a taxi and take it, half a mile, 5 miles, 10 miles, however far you want to go, and just do that instead of hailing a taxi directly. If you use the group taxis, they're pretty cheap, they're quite reasonable, so that's an option. As a tourist, I wouldn't really recommend it because for the most part, the group taxis travel along Sultan Qaboos Street, and they're really not there to do point-to-point trips. So you need to know, when you get on, you need to know where to get off so that you can walk to wherever you want to go. And unless the taxi is completely empty, normally they won't actually deviate from just driving up and down Sultan Qaboos Street. Now, these taxis are not as nice as the Muwasalat taxis, so, just keep that in mind. And also, as a group taxi, like I said, it's picking up multiple people. So, you could have 3, maybe 4 people in the back seat, and these are not huge taxis, and you'll have usually one person in the front. If you're a female traveler, keep in mind that you can only sit in the front. So if there's already someone sitting in the front seat, then that's it. You won't be able to take that taxi because men sit in the back, and men and women would never sit and share space in a group taxi. Obviously, if you're traveling with friends and that sort of thing, that's fine. But if you're just standing on the side of the road, getting a group taxi to take you from point A to point B with complete strangers, as a woman, you can only sit in the front seat. Now, the fare on a group taxi is a little bit tricky because there's sort of everyone who uses group taxis know the fare, so you don't really negotiate the fare with a group taxi. Normally, people will get in and get out, and then they just pay the driver because they know what the fare costs. If you are a tourist, then you should ask how much the fare is. But obviously, by asking what the fare is, you might as well hang a sign around your neck that says, "Hey, I'm clueless, I'm a tourist." Now, maybe they'll tell you the right amount, but most likely they'll increase it a bit. If you do live here, one thing that you could do is you just watch to see what other people are paying, and then you know what the going rate is. But you may or may not be able to figure that out. So that's something to play by ear. If you're traveling about 5 minutes in the taxi, the price would be about 200 besa, which is about 50 cents. If you're traveling maybe 10, 15 minutes in the taxi, the price should be about 500 besa, which is about $1.30. If you're going to ask how much the fare is, it's better to be in a taxi with other people because you might get overcharged a bit if you're in the taxi on your own. Speaking of taxis and getting around town, I just wanted to mention something which honestly I don't know if it's true. But I've been told that in Oman you are not allowed to drive anyone other than your family members, because in essence you're acting as a taxi even though you're just driving someone to the mall or something like that, and you're not charging for your services. I've heard that that's the case, and I've heard of people getting tickets which are for 10 real, which is $26, for driving people who are not in their immediate family. It seems a bit preposterous. I don't know anyone personally that has had that happen to them, but on certain forums online, I've seen people complain about it, and I've seen other people respond, yeah, that's the rule. You're not allowed to drive anyone. Personally, no one really pays any attention to this. If we're going to lunch as a group, someone drives and everybody jumps in. No one really pays any attention. I just thought it was kind of an unusual rule, if it really does exist, and just something to mention. Now, I just want to talk about apps for a little bit. Muwasalat has an app, or at least they did a few years ago. This is being recorded in 2020, but so in 2018, I used to use the Muwasalat app, and it was diabolical. Many times I couldn't get it to connect. I couldn't get it to find my location, and so it was very hit or miss. So there are a lot of flights that leave in the middle of the night in Oman, and I've had several occasions where I wake up, I'm getting ready at, it's 2 in the morning, and I'm trying to get a taxi from Muwasalat on their app, and it's not working. And suddenly, 2:30 in the morning, I walk out on the street and I need to find a taxi to take me to the airport. And if you're not aware of it, Muscat is a pretty sleepy town, so you can't guarantee you're going to find a taxi at 2:30 in the morning wandering around the streets. So that can be a bit dicey. I had an occasion once where literally I was walking around and a random guy just saw me walking around dragging a suitcase and asked me what was going on because he said I looked a bit distressed. And I was distressed because I had a flight to catch and I'd been walking the streets trying to find a taxi. So when I explained that to him, he drove me to the airport. Very nice. That's one thing I would say, people talk about the hospitality here. And, there are some times when things happen, you think, okay, this would never happen back where I'm from. So this guy went out of his way. He was going somewhere else. He drove me. I did say I live near the airport, so I'm probably like a 5-minute drive to the airport, but he was going the opposite direction. But he dropped me off at the airport. I caught my flight. Everything was fine. So from my perspective, the lesson there is don't use the Muwasalat app. But again, like I said, that was 2018. Maybe it's improved now. I'm not sure. My solution is instead to use the app called O-Taxi. I've been using it now for about 1.5 years, and it is amazing. It's fantastic. In fact, it's almost too good. If I'm going to take a taxi, if I'm going to the airport, I actually have to be completely packed and ready to walk out the door by the time I request my taxi. The first couple times I use this app, I would, need to finish packing, put my coat on, that kind of thing. And literally the driver is downstairs before I've even had a chance to get out the door. So it's very quick. I would say probably the longest I've ever waited for a taxi is about 3 minutes. And I'm serious when I say I'm just about to put my key in the door to lock the door, to get in the lift to go downstairs. And worst case scenario I've ever had so far is a 3-minute wait for a taxi. So I can't recommend it highly enough. That's all I have to say about taxis. Hopefully you found that useful. If you have any questions, leave a note in the comments and I will respond to it.